Inland and Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. Today is November 6th, 2023, at 7 o'clock. Roll call, we did that kind of already. Duncan, Jan, Jed, Bill, the chairman, and Jan's not co-chair, so. Right. No, so we got Ed's here too. And Ed.
Yeah, here I am.
You're an alternate, right? Did you want, we wanted to change the order of the agenda?
Yeah, there was just two corrections, because Eric's gonna show up later, because he's at another meeting right now. So we can move the jurisdictional ruling up.
All right, we'll do that. Just change A to B on items 7. And approval of the minutes, September 12th. Did everybody get a chance to read those?
I did, a little bit for me.
Yeah. Good to see you. No comments here. Here and I was surprised that we didn't start that meeting until 7:30, but whatever. Started earlier.
I think we were,
That was, I didn't know
Yeah,
the
remember
that day.
she was late, remember?
That's right. Around that hour. That's right.
Right.
Get that thing. Oh, that's right.
That would be.
Okay. All right, so
Who else is doing?
do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Oh, I'll motion to approve the minutes.
September 12th. I'll second. Need to vote on that, vote on that. Aye.
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 You sure?
Aye.
Duncan, aye for the, aye for the minutes, okay. Public comments. Public comment, normally that would be on comments on things that aren't on the agenda. Okay. Okay.
But there's, I mean, there's no public except for them, right, but they're here for the.
I see we got another.
I think he's a
And the
prospective commission member. But,
okay,
What's his name? Brad?
yeah,
And
If anybody's talking to me, it's very hard for me to hear what's being said.
We'll speak louder, Ed. Yep, I know the acoustics here aren't always great.
old business, special action. Do we have anything on that? They, all our old business is taken care of. Alright. So we can go into the new business, take receipt, discuss, the jurisdictional ruling for, review IWWC 23/17. Jurisdictional ruling, Austin Harmon, 63 Bunker Hill Road.
Well, the agenda says Burnett Road.
yeah, I screwed up that one.
Okay,
And wetlands crossing for an approximately 54-acre timber harvest of sawlog size and to remove dead and or dying trees. Well, this is the jurisdictional ruling review. So we're trying to figure out who's has jurisdiction on this. Eric.
I'm trying to figure out if we have jurisdiction.
Trying to figure out if we have jurisdiction on this particular timber harvest. So. Thanks.
Boston Harmon, Coal Forest Products, I'm a licensed forester in Connecticut, Massachusetts. We're planning a proposed timber harvest on property of Peter and Dorothy Yemens, 63 Bunker Hill Road, Andover. We had a harvest previously about, I want to say 5-ish years ago, something along those lines. The goal of that harvest was to open up, well, first it was to cut unhealthy and diseased trees, but also to open up the forest canopy, reveal sunlight to the forest floor, and establish natural regeneration for the trees from there. From that harvest has been plentiful natural regeneration throughout the property. So we are planning on going through and cutting most of the saw log sized trees, so trees 14 inches or larger, and then any other unhealthy or diseased trees that are well there. To free up more space to that advanced regeneration. Oak in particular, when trying to regenerate, it needs a lot of sunlight in order to actually maintain itself and get into the forest canopy and become a component of the forest. So the goal of this project is to open up the forest canopy more, give it the sunlight it needs, and then have that forest grow up and have a long, healthy future ahead of it. There will be 2 wetland crossings and 2 drainage crossings associated with the harvest, the timber harvesters. Were there copies of the timber smash or anything?
You guys had them on here.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's 4 crossings in total, 2 for wetlands, 2 for drainages. All were used in the previous harvest. All will be supported using corduroy and or temporary timber bridge mat, depending on weather conditions when we're there, and obviously local weather events. Obviously 3 inches of rain overnight. Unpredictable, seeing this past year, we won't work for, a day or 2, give us some time to dry out before we resume operations there. Yeah, the harvest is planned to be used with a harvester and a forwarder and a cable skidder. The cable skidder mainly will be used for the steeper areas on the property where other heavy machinery cannot access. The landing area will be right off of Bunker Hill Road, previously used before. There already is an existing anti-tracking pad. So we're going to use that as we can. If we do come into any sort of issues with dirt or sedimentation onto the road, we will install a new anti-tracking pad to help combat that. We can go from there.
when you did it, in I think it was 2019, did you do a whole piece of land? Or was it just a portion?
We did the majority of the property. I think there were a couple sections we left untouched. As to why, I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't say as to why we would or wouldn't have. I wasn't with the company 5 years ago, and it was done by one of our associates who no longer works for us, but.
And you're doing the same, I mean, it's the same scope this time.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
It's not clear cut, right? So selective cut.
Correct, yeah, it will look, different, and it's gonna be more open, but there will still be plenty of healthy trees left. And the goal of it is to open up the sunlight to the trees, the saplings and seedlings that are, around chest and knee height specifically. The oak, like I said, typically needs at least 1 to 2 lengths of each tree in between trees in order to properly grow into the forest canopy and become a component of the forest without being shaded out in the future. The goal is to do that. There were a handful of ash trees that weren't cut at the last go around. Now with the end of that quarter, it's important that we try to salvage those while we can. Besides that, tree health was pretty good for the most part. There were a couple of trees that have went down and declining since the last harvest 5 years ago, so those will be cut accordingly during the harvest.
The decision of the inland wetland, if you did a cut in 2019. Did you do a jurisdictional review at that time? Did you, what was the conclusion of that?
I'm not sure if it went through as technically a jurisdictional ruling. Nothing in the paperwork file that I was able to see said it was any sort of permit, so it doesn't make me believe there was any sort of permit or anything else along those lines needed. But I can't say for sure because I wasn't here then. But I know it obviously was approved because it was done, but that's about it.
I wouldn't bet on that. I was on the commission in 2019 and I don't recall anything being discussed then, but.
Can I speak?
Yep, well, not the meeting, yeah, planning and zoning meeting, sorry. Yes.
Dorothy Yeomans. I went to all the state meetings on the highway going through there. They took the whole back of our property, all of our frontage on Bunker Hill Road. They took all that. And at that time, at those meetings, that Scungamug pond, a little bit beyond us, a little bit toward the Nathan Hale Forest, but close to our property still, was the big wetland consideration, but they never considered, I mean, I have all the maps at home, they never considered our little, there's a little pond, and then beyond there's, in the spring, there is a spring that comes down one area, but, it was never made for me to think that it was actual wetlands that needed a permit. Not that I ever was involved. I mean, my husband and my son were doing it, but if you walk the property, you'd see it's not like a major thing. We did see one spotted turtle. That was one of the reasons the highway didn't actually be built through my property. One spotted turtle saved us, but.
Would you be able to speak on behalf of the Conservation Commission?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Couple of questions. If there was one spotted turtle, it's actually very interesting. The wetlands have been identified, but are they flagged?
The wetlands have not been flagged. I did mark the timber harvest boundaries, with blue paint around the property.
Or were the wetlands determined by a swim scientist?
They were not, no.
So it was basically a visual.
Correct. So going through, I'm obviously looking for riparian species, red maple, birch, et cetera. Normal growing wetland area, as well as the shrubbery change. Normally, as it goes drier ground and what growing there changes to get to a wetland. There, presence of moss, obviously, presence of water, and more elevation. So most of the wetland was easily indicated because it comes off the slope for most of the property. You can see where it levels off. That's where the wetland really lies.
So you mentioned two wetlands. Are they intermittent stream type crosses or are they wet? What your swamps?
So there's a drainage that comes off the hillside and leads into the wetland. There will be two crossings on that. Yes, there will be two crossings on that drainage which were used in the past harvest. And then the wetland itself, it has either quote unquote drainage or I haven't seen it actually run, so I'm assuming it's just the drainage, but it depends on if you have a lot of water.
The drainage is more. You describe them a little bit to me? And do they hold water?
The drainage themselves, not year round.
Not year round,
Not year
but temporarily?
Yeah, temporarily. And, so there's two wetland crossings, with no actual water flow, and then there's two drainage crossings where there's periodical water flow throughout.
And you'll be crossing through those?
Yes,
Okay.
using either quarterly or temporary bridge mats and state.
Okay. And Dorothy, do you know if we sent a letter, when we did a joint initiative with the Conservation Commission and the Wetlands Commission 2 years ago now, I think it was, where we were actually working to map verticals town. And we identified them from satellite images. And then what we did is we sent letters to landowners where we had identified potential verticals. Do you remember I don't remember if we sent you one?
I got a letter asking permission,
Yes,
but I didn't get any letter about the result
okay. But
that
did,
I
no, I
remember.
think we visited. Did you respond to that letter with permission?
Yes, I
You did?
did
Okay.
send permission.
Okay, yeah, so I guess one of the things I'd like to request is that from conservation, because we may actually have information on the site if we visited it. Because what we did is when we mapped them, if we received permission on the private properties, we actually went out and trained residents in town in this room. And we went out and we actually did a mass count and we verified whether they were vernal pools or not. Because you can only tell so much from the satellite images. So in some cases they weren't, in some cases they were.
Sure.
If you did find a spotted turtle here, that's a state listed species.
Right.
And that's probably one of the reasons why the 6 line was the challenge. And they're also a vernal pool dependent species that utilize vernal pools for a decade. So I guess from the standpoint of wetlands, knowing better what those wetlands are and the characteristics of those wetlands, I think is important. As far as the wetland commission's jurisdiction over that, if you were putting down, if you're actually putting something in the wetland, a crossing, that's a deposition in the wetland, even if it's temporary. So that could require permits, require an application. And I believe the commission has required permits in the past for temporary crossings for wetlands, for example, I believe on the Bower property, several other sites, I can recall.
One of the wetland crossings is a pre-existing trail that runs through our property.
So you're not.
Pictures that we can
There are.
share.
So we are going to timber bridge map over that, and we'll probably start through the trail, because we know it's a trail, it's wet around here. And then the other crossing is high grass, pretty much a Peter median, where you're so height. There's no other trees nearby, the way, we're kind of going to let them down and maybe.
But if it's wetland defined by fluids. If you're putting anything in the wetland, if you're depositing over the wetland, that can require a permit.
I've never heard that before, everything I've ever dealt with was as of right.
And the definition in the wetland, if you take a look at wetland regulations, it's the definition in the wetland.
Okay.
And I believe the commission has acted on, at least 2 that I can recall. We crossings, I believe Mark Grant's town attorney weighed in. He did. On that fact of whether that constituted a deposition or not. I don't remember if that was the Neubauer application or not, go back and look. And they have, did bring my computer, we got a chance that, so I may have, where I have data on the pool, so I can tell pretty quickly whether we have the potential on the site. We visited from the house.
I don't know if it means anything with the outcome of that study.
Yeah, they might have been, I don't know, we responded to all the folks that we went out to their properties with the results, so it might have been that it determined it wasn't going full, which is possible.
Was this, is this one of the pre-existing structure?
Yes, so this is the crossing with a pre-existing road, already going through it. It was obviously a skid trail we used in the past, but it also has been used by the landowner for their own private use of the property.
So that would be crossing number 1, you know the numbers on this compared to what we're looking at?
I believe so.
Yeah, that numbered up, so I see.
I believe so. Crossing number 1 is
That's this.
that's the crossing
That's
number.
just 2.
Oh, that's just two. That's, yeah.
So
Yeah,
that is,
I'm not hearing enough language. I think I'm just gonna bow out, and from now on, I'll make live meetings. It's just not able for me to pick up what's being said.
so that picture right there isn't, you're not necessarily in the wetland yet, but if you see that larger tree in the middle of the screen, we are approaching the wetland, and that is the high grass area I was speaking of. So the wetland essentially starts at that larger tree in the middle. If you go to the next picture, it should be shown. I think we're good. Yeah, that is part of the view of that same crossing.
Is there any way you can avoid that?
Either way, we have to use one of those crossings to access the property. That wetland runs.
This one, I mean, number 2.
If we could, since we used it before, I'd like to use it again. It would also make the skid distance a lot shorter on our end of things.
I realize that, but sometimes, you know, it might be worth it to just leave it. Maybe that's what your spotted turtle is, you know, right there.
Right, well, there are other areas of that wetland that are holding water, that one's just a very small feature you can see on the camera, the rest of what you see doesn't hold any sort of water.
Well, the way I'm looking at this particular marsh is it's undisturbed. I mean, I realize it's like, if you put what you need to put in there, it's not gonna be in there permanent, I understand that, but it's still gonna just completely change what we're looking at here. I mean, it has a tendency to sag down. You get like that. If you do that, it sags the land down, then the water pools. And then you have a little pond instead of a marsh.
Correct, no, I completely understand what you're saying, but that's the whole point of the timber bridge mats, is to help disperse that waste, so we don't leave any indentations into the soil itself. What we have done in the past where needed is we would use timber bridge mats up to the edge of where you see standing water. We would get a firewood pole or a small saw log, place it not in the marsh, but at the edge of it, and then on the other edge, and then that's over it. That way, we're just going right over it rather than putting any sort of pressure into the area itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's an,
When you go to skid your lots, are you crossing through this, when you skid your lots out?
Well, that's one of the proposed crossings, yeah. Yeah, we would, like I said, put corduroy and or temporary bridge mats everywhere as needed.
And if you said it would be a longer distance if you skidded around it, you'd have to skid all those lots even further,
Correct.
disturbing more soil.
Right.
oh, oh, yeah.
Wouldn't necessarily have to have. But I guess my conversation, just so I'm not whispering over here, is you had talked about there being, dependent upon the weather conditions, we would use corduroy mat, or we could possibly bridge the crossing.
So yes, so we would use corduroy and or temporary bridge mats. It depends on the crossing and the
And the
conditions.
difference, at least,
Say it again, sir?
the difference in my mind, at least as we were briefed by Attorney Branch, is that if we put corduroy in, even though you're gonna take it out, that requires a permit. If you're gonna bridge it and not have anything go into the wetlands, that's when we could rule that you don't need a permit. And we'll look at the map here, there are some solutions where you wouldn't need to go through the wetlands at all. I'm sure there's some drawbacks to that. But if you weren't gonna go through the wetlands, then we wouldn't need to have a permit either. So there's a couple of options here. But tonight, we're not talking about approving the plan, we're just talking about, do we need an application? And it sounds to me like we can't rule out the need for an application because we don't know exactly what we're gonna do there unless we had a different, route that avoided the wetlands. And it looks to me like, from the map, it's possible to avoid the wetlands completely. There might be other factors why you don't want to do that. I'm not aware of them. It looks like it might be a little bit longer route, but.
So if you're speaking to the area, I believe it's to the east of the house there.
Well,
The reason
we saw it online, so we should, it's in our file.
Look at this map, it looks like
Map?
voided.
Yep,
Yes, if
it shows up good on the screen.
Oh, okay, it looks terrible. Do
Yeah, it looks much better up there.
Can we scroll down some, please?
you want me to try to zoom out to try to get it?
That would work, either or. Yeah, so if you're, yeah, correct, so we technically could go around. So realistically, that portion of the skid trail to the southeast, I left that open in the air. We didn't harvest there last time around. The reason for that is because it's a lot of high multiflora rose, Japanese barberry, other invasive species. And although that's not technically a wetland, there is a very poorly drained soil pipe. So that's why we left it undisturbed last time, was because the feeling is we'd cause more damage than we'd actually get anything out of doing it. That's my initial instinct. This go around, the landowner was adamant on trying if we can, so that's why I left that route open, but that's up in the air whether we do or don't do that. So realistically, the skid trail to the southeast is still up in the air whether we use it or not. And that central skid trail you see coming through, to the south, connecting the two at the east and the west. Part of that kind of runs through somewhat of a barn area they have on the property, so we have landowner in the barn, a lot of old machines. It is possible to navigate through that, but it's definitely gonna be very much of a hassle. Possibly the days of moving equipment that might not even be able to run. If we're looking at it, I doubt most of it's able to run. I just left it in there as an open option in case. But the main skid trail, what we're really hoping for is the skid trail from the landing continuing north, using both wetland crossings and going to the end of the property from there.
So you're talking about the one that's,
It might be helpful if you went up and pointed
Sure.
to the ones that, just which one's short?
If my arms will reach.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see on this map, but there is a crossed black hatch area here. I didn't do that, did I? There is an area here around the house and the barn, that's the hardest area, and it also is going through the wetland here, showing that we're not cutting any trees within the wetland, some within the edge, but not within the wetland itself, besides possibly on the skid trails where you might need to cut a couple or two for proper access purposes. This part of the skid trail, we are not planning on using. We might be able to. It really depends on weather conditions when we're there. If we do have a nice cold spell, it would be a good time to do it. If we don't have a cold spell, might not be a great time to do it. So our main route we're trying to focus on is heading north from the landing, using both wetland crossings and heading up further north from there and having. Isn't that neat?
I don't know if that screen is touch screen.
I didn't think I touched it, but. So the plan would be for us to pull all the wood from the north of the property, south using these two crossings, as well as the drainage crossing down this way.
oh, I see.
Right, the other skid trails I just left in there as a possible option. Doesn't mean we're necessarily going to use them. I'm hoping not to, that we can help it for the most part, but.
So just my two cents
Yeah,
is for everybody. Is I would actually prefer to see bridge over the wetlands. Because if you go around, that's even further to the skid lock, the whole point is to decrease the humidity, get sunlight in it, to cause regeneration and growth. And if you go further around, you're just causing more soil degradation, and which could cause more erosion into the wet areas at the bottom.
correct.
So I would say, I think the shortest trail possible is the best way to reduce, soil degradation and more disturbance. Because your whole point of going in there is to increase regeneration, not destroy soils.
Correct.
Whether wetlands or not, soils are soils, and erosion is erosion. That's just my 2 cents. So if you could, like you said, build that bridge, on either side where you could go right over the water, I would prefer to see that rather than go all the way around and create more disturbance and more. You're trying to increase plant life.
Correct.
Succession.
Yep.
On the ground. So by disturbing them, it's just gonna cause more problems.
I agree.
The issue whether that's a berm pool or not.
The issue is it's bad.
So
Vertical
it has nothing to do necessarily, it doesn't have just to do with your study.
correct. Verticals are tight.
Okay.
It have, another level of conservation concern, but wetlands are wet.
Yeah, there's like you said, if that soil at the bottom right, if you would have to use that as a skid trail to go around those wetlands, the connectivity of the saturation of the soil is really, really high, and it's really, really wet. I mean, it's just gonna destroy the soil going through there, whereas if it's dry, and you're just crossing over that wetland with a bridge, you're gonna do less destruction, like you said, rather than.
Correct. Correct. We're consolidating any sort of possible damage. From my experience, I've done dozens and dozens of timber harvest with wetland and drainage and even big stream crossings where we had to cable and use log bridges over major streams that run year round. The effects I've seen on wetlands have been very minimal. Yeah, there's been a couple of jobs where we were in the wrong time of the year, or it was classified as a wetland, it's not a wetland according to soil scientists, it just cooled the water during part of the year, as we've had very wet summers. It definitely doesn't help the cause, so consolidating the course of travel to two areas, especially areas that have already been used in the past, is our main effort here.
Are you planning on doing this as soon as possible, or could it be?
I was hoping within the next month or so. Yeah, so my subcontractor who I have in mind for this property, he would hopefully start it by, I would say, mid-December.
So there's some potential the ground could be frozen.
Correct. Correct.
Definitely.
Yeah, I heard we're supposed to have a lot of snow this year.
Yeah, that'd be best case
It's been
scenario.
cold a few times, we'll see if that holds up, but.
Maybe it's better to go over the marsh instead of driving around. I was thinking you could use that trail over to the right.
Right, like I was saying,
It's
not too
very
much, right, it's definitely not the preferred option, if possible, yeah, preferred, it's not the best course of attack if we're trying to, you know, obviously minimize and prevent any sort of damage.
Yes, sir.
So you're actually building a bridge over that, is that right, or are you putting down a corridor across?
We would be putting down temporary timber with that.
That's not a bridge, that's the definition of wetland.
As far as every other commission I spoke to, including in Nixie, that.
According to my knowledge of the language of the wetlands, that's the definition about that. A bridge is something that's over, it starts in another, connects to another road, and crosses over jurisdictional wetland. That's a bridge. When you put down a corridor crossing or a timber crossing, that's a definition of wetland.
Well, I'm just saying, as far as I've been told, as long as I've been doing this for like over, that we hadn't heard that. I'm not disagreeing with
As chairman to consult with wetland and wetlands regulations in the state of Connecticut, look at the bylaw of the forestry and agriculture, and look at what they say regarding that positions, and look at what our attorney, our grant said about that position. With this exact scenario of corduroy and we're putting for crossing. I would strongly suggest that there is a better assessment of the wetlands on the site than we have right now. And if the plan is to cross the wetlands, it is my belief it requires a permit. Because you know, really don't then, but I have not seen that done in the forest project. And I don't agree with the fact that it's better to go to the wetland than just go around the wetland. The commission's jurisdiction is wetland. Their focus is not on the protection of the forest area or the forest, it's on protection of wetlands. That's the jurisdiction of the wetland commission. Looking at erosion, potential impacts is. I would also question whether we'll have frozen ground in 2 months, doing operations like this will be dead. And we've had an unseasonably wet period of time when the ground is very saturated. We cause a lot of damage to that ecosystem and potentially to those wetlands. Generally, these are done in midwinter when you have the more frozen conditions and you can get in there and actually do things. I would be more than willing, as the commission, the conservation commission, to go out and walk the site, take a look at that, provide an input on it. But I do think it's hard to get a reading just looking at the maps here. And given that they have not been flagged, there hasn't been a soil survey done to really determine what's wetland, what's not wetland.
In 2019, when you did this, when you built this bridge or whatever you want to call it over, are you talking about the same, doing the exact same thing this time?
Yes, correct.
And that was,
It's not a bridge.
no, I know, but what was it in 2019? That's what I'm asking, like, I'd like to see those papers and.
Sure, so I wasn't there in 2019, I don't,
None of us
I wasn't, I didn't watch it, I wasn't there for the
Right.
harvest itself. I know we submitted a timber harvest notification, because I do have it in my files, it was submitted to the town. which leads me to believe it was then voted on and approved by the Wetlands Commission in 2019.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see what was approved, what went over
Right.
wetland, what.
From looking at it, it was the same language, it was corduroy and or temporary bridge mats. I'd be more than willing to contact somebody from Connecticut DOT, I mean, sorry, Nick Zito is his name. He's walked many properties with me when I had questions and such, and it's definitely a third party source. So,
DEP.
yes,
What's his position in DEP?
I don't know his technical title.
A better context would be Darcy Winter, who's the wetlands agent for the city. Since she is that's the group that's responsible for
Okay.
I have a question, Larry Hardesty, when he was the town engineer, he did quite a bit of assessment on the right-hand side from Bunker Hill up quite a ways, at least 800, 1,000 feet into the woods. Just a soil assessment with my son, because my son was considering building a house there. And, so I wonder if you would have any record of his,
There, I wouldn't, whether
I
if
mean,
he,
in the town.
if he mapped it, if it was mapped, if there was a soil, a certified soil scientist mapped it for a potential project like a housing project.
Well, he was trying to see if he could build a house there.
Yeah, well, oftentimes what they'll do is they'll go in and they analyze the soils.
Yeah.
And they
They've
can
done
determine
big-
where the boundary is wet and where the other is, so they can tell, and they can map that. And that's used to guide oftentimes where you put roads or trails or skidder trails, things like that. So there may be, it depends on how they did it, or if they did it just informally with the Corps and didn't record it, I don't know. That I don't know.
But he would also possibly have that information in his private,
You may, yeah.
so,
Agent Wagner, do you have anything for us on this?
With what?
I just asked Agent Wagner for his input. He's been pretty quiet so far.
I'm just listening, well, I remember if we go back to the pictures, if you don't mind. I look at that, crossing one is that one right in the center, right?
Over the-
Southeast, yeah.
You want crossing 1 or crossing 2?
Yeah, crossing one,
That was the existing one.
yeah. So you can see that one's pretty much a road already.
Yeah, crossing one. Yeah. And this isn't what you want to do on crossing two, same thing?
Say it again, sorry?
This, what we're looking at here on crossing one is what you want to try to do like crossing.
Well, we're not gonna try to make it any sort of, a full-on road. We're going to try preventing as much damage as we can over the wetland by putting down the corduroy and or temporary bridge mats where applicable. My gut feeling from looking at the site is we're gonna end up sticking with mostly brick mats. But it really depends on weather conditions. If we come into some really cold weather, we might be able to get away with corduroy up the approaches rather than brick mats through the whole entire area. But it really all depends.
So when you say corduroy, you're gonna put the corduroy down on the ground.
Correct.
Somewhere in the documentation for this, I thought I saw a really good drawing of what a bridge over a wetland
Yeah, and what?
was. And it's not in the little flyer that Joe sent out, so it's gotta be in the folder here.
But there was, you're right, it showed,
It,
Yeah, I pulled an example out of the DEP's
Oh, we're here.
forestry. manual.
there, yeah, yeah, so if we were to put that spanned the wetland, then we wouldn't need a permit. But that wetland for crossing number 2 looks like it's pretty big.
It is definitely long.
And so, yeah. So I guess for the purposes of the discussion tonight, I would make a motion that we do have jurisdiction over it and that an application is required.
This would be a separate application than the one I've done.
You could use, this, cause it's the same application. So we could use this and you could receive it tonight. And then that would start the comment, so you could technically approve it at the next meeting if you wanted to.
Do I have this second for Jen's motion?
Second. Okay.
I guess in the point of discussion, I'm sure that the project is doable. But it concerned me a little bit that we have trails, we have a trail marked around the wetlands that we don't want to use, that would avoid the wetlands entirely, and that we don't have the wetlands fully officially identified, and we talk about we're trying to avoid going around the wetlands because it sounds like those are wetlands over there too for, you know, any extent of things. So, as far as discussion on the motion, I'm not sure that I'd be willing to receive it later tonight because I don't know that it's got Agent Wagner's blessing on that. But
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it as forestry is an as of right use, so, I mean, you have to look at that, like they're legally allowed to cut timber. And to do it in a responsible way.
Yep.
And so we're reviewing this and the crossings to make sure it's basically done in a responsible way. And that we, you know, conforms to the regulation. Like I said, I think the biggest thing is the focus on the crossings and, you know, whether or not you think the permit is required or not.
But there was another application, and I don't know if it was right before or right after you took over here, you know. Megan Lally was the chair at the time, and we did reroute the trails around the wetlands as part of the discussion. And
You have to just consider it independently, though, you know, like people.
If I could say, if it makes you feel better about it, I'm fine with taking wetland crossing 2 out of the equation and just sticking to wetland crossing 1. The reason I had it in there is because it was previously used before. I figured we could use it again. If it makes you feel better, we can just stick to wetland crossing 1.
Wetland crossing 2 was being used before.
Say it again, sorry.
Wetland crossing 2 was used.
I don't know if it was used in the past harvest, but it has been a trail that you can tell somebody was going through. I mean, it didn't have any tire ruts as such, but it's an open area. It's clear somebody used it at some point in the past.
So my husband has 4 1947 really big trucks. I don't know what size you call them, but he's got a wrecker, a dump truck, a stake truck, and a cab over. He goes into the woods, and from the previous harvesting, he pulled all the logs out on that road that you just saw. It's full of rock, and no one, I mean, Jerry Hardesty was up there checking on this other part, but he knows Peter. He never said anything to us that was wetlands. So I'm very surprised that this particular road that goes all the way out to Bear Swamp, actually, is suddenly a wetland. There's a little pond on the right-hand side. It dries up in the summer. Now this year's been rainier, but every other summer it dries up, and Peter's been pulling logs out of there for 26 cord a year for 30 years. So, I'm astounded.
Looking at the crossings independently, if you were to put a bridge over the wetland crossing, which one would do the least amount of damage to getting logs?
Wetland crossing 1.
Crossing 1.
Yeah, since it is an existing trail, all we did was put in timber bridge mats over that trail, and then going that way and then pulling them out afterwards. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before as well, but all the skid trails, and any other areas exposed to bare mineral soil within and outside the wetlands, will be seeded and hayed after the harvest. In this case, obviously, seed won't be put in until spring, but as long as there's not snow on the ground, we can still put a hay down where feasible to help prevent any sort of possible erosion and, soil disturbance.
You'll be using the trails. That would be possible.
Yeah, correct.
Well, what would happen with this? Number one, this ruling review, if, as Austin mentioned, he gets rid of crossing number 2, what would that do to us?
Well,
Since we already saw this one.
so the motion right now is to say that the Wetlands Commission has jurisdiction over the application.
This application. This,
Yeah. If there wants to be a change based on some discussion, based on discussions with Agent Wagner and all that, yeah, that's fine. But we're not gonna make a decision on it tonight. We aren't permitted to do that.
You can make a ruling on that jurisdictional ruling. That doesn't require public comment, because you're basically saying that you don't have authority.
Well, I think we need to vote on that. You know, I personally think that we are required to take jurisdiction over the application.
even minus crossing to. You say that's not there.
That's not the plan. The plan that was presented to us shows trails going around it. I think that before we make a decision one way or another, we would like to go out and actually look at the site. So that we can make an informed decision. But tonight we're deciding whether or not we need to have an application. We don't have an application yet. If we want to go through the wetlands, which the applicant does, I think what we've heard tonight does require us to take jurisdiction.
And then the application could either have both spots or just one.
Or just one, but, I think, the applicant needs to get the Agent Wagner so that he can
Right.
help him come up with the
Right.
best, plan that they can. I like the forestry management aspects of the plan. I just think we're required to take jurisdiction over the wetlands crossings.
I guess the other thing you could do is make a motion about specific wetland crossing, you have jurisdiction over 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And not. You'd have to make the motion, you have to cite that, drawing date, as in accordance with this.
But I haven't heard anything that convinces me that we shouldn't take jurisdiction over, well, we haven't even talked about 3 and 4.
Going over the stream, so.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is on those two. We've been talking about the wetlands here.
How about
But if we're gonna put,
stream?
we're gonna put corduroy in wetlands. And I've heard that is a possibility for both 1 and 2. We need to have an application for that.
But if we don't use corduroy, then we don't need an application, according to what you said earlier, is that correct?
That is correct. Correct.
But are you talking about the temporary bridge mats at this point, or the corduroy poles themselves?
No, temporary bridge.
So if we use the temporary bridge mats, such as on the board there, we wouldn't need an application.
Right.
Okay, with that being said, we're more fine with just using temporary bridge mats and no corduroy
I prefer to
in
see
the wetland area.
so you guys use a temporary bridge mat to go over the wetland
Yeah,
rather than through.
and that's fine. We're going to do
I
that.
don't, so how long is that wetland crossing to?
Say that again, sorry.
How wide is wetlands crossing number 2?
Oh, I didn't bring a tape measure out and actually measure it. I would say it's roughly 70-ish feet, so I don't know if that maps exactly the scale. I was just going off the wetlands layer that's according to the state. But if that's outdated, not exactly sure. Whether it's true or false, I've seen wetland layers definitely be off in the past.
I don't know that you can build a temporary bridge 70 feet long. You know, when I was schooled on that, on a previous application, they were talking about 15 to 20 feet.
Yeah, so so the temporary brick mats are separate pieces. They're each about, I would say 5 by 10, 5 foot wide by 10 foot long, something along those lines. You would place one after the other as you're going, over the wetland. In this case, it's not just one whole big structure.
And that's,
So that would be a
that was
deposition.
sturdy enough to hold.
Definitely. I've seen it used time and time again without issue.
That would technically be a deposition of wetland. You have to put them in the wetland. Correct. That's not a problem.
So I guess we're back to voting on the motion that's on the table, is do we take jurisdiction over the issue or not? Okay.
So even with the bridges that you're talking about, you still have to go into the wetlands. These temporary bridges are gonna sag down into the wetlands. Correct.
Yeah, they would be sitting on top of the wetland surface.
Okay.
Correct.
So we're still in the same, kind of in the same place as far as that goes. Did we get a second on that motion?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be a vote on this, say, we take jurisdiction over this application for, wetlands crossing.
What jurisdiction you want to give us, just to, if you can go ahead or not,
No, actually,
or to do it.
I think we probably should, if we're gonna take jurisdiction over that, I would think we would need to go on with the sidewalk. Like on Saturday or something like that, and just have a look. See what we're dealing with, so we can make a better decision on, or the same decision that you've already made, but with an application.
Yeah, that's where I took all this.
Was there wetland disturbance from the previous harvest? You saw?
The roads, yeah, because it's cut, it's thinner.
Okay.
Yeah, that one looked like it's been logged.
Yeah. So this is gonna be like the first time that I think that this piece of land has actually been looked at by the Inland Wetlands and Water Courses Commission in the end, which I think is probably it should be. By the looks of it, but looking at the map and looking at what you want to do.
We have to vote on the motion.
But we have to vote on the motion first. So the motion is, do we take jurisdictional ruling review over this timber harvest? How do you vote?
Aye.
Now you probably wanna receive it as a permanent application.
We'll receive it as an application.
After a visit? After a site visit? Is that what you wanna do, or?
I think we should do a site walk. Can you make it on Saturday?
It could have been Saturday morning.
9 o'clock Saturday? Oh, yeah. He's out.
This is Brad Kelly. Are you talking about this Saturday, Veterans Day?
Oh, Veterans Day. Maybe not such a good day.
Yeah, technically you can't do it on Saturday because Saturday is a state holiday.
Oh,
For FOI rules. You can't hold a meeting on a Saturday. We can do it on Saturday.
Can't do this Saturday or any Saturday?
This Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Regular Saturday, no problem.
I can do it on an afternoon too.
Okay,
I can do it on an afternoon too.
I can do it on an afternoon, or I can do it the following Saturday.
Yeah, whichever, I can meet you by 3:30 in the afternoon. You want to do it on an afternoon or Saturday?
54 acres.
Yeah.
It's dark. Right.
Yes.
Maybe the following Saturday.
Yeah, if we go, the 17th, we could do it, in the morning.
The following Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, did you say?
9 o'clock in the morning. And,
November 17th.
November 17th.
Am I allowed to join for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're encouraged, yeah.
I'm just making sure.
So make sure you notice that as a public meeting. That will be a public meeting if every three show up.
Now, do you wanna make a motion to accept this, or to receive this as a permit, to put on record? Permit application?
I don't know, because it might change, if we do that sidewalk, the whole thing could change.
Well, you wanna accept it, and then you make your ruling next time, so you can accept it now,
When
that'll.
you get it, something to change, you can make changes.
Yeah, you can just discuss it at the next meeting, and then either vote on it or put it off, to the next.
Okay, why don't we?
And you really should accept it before you go on a sidewalk anyway.
Oh, okay, okay. So do we vote on that?
Yeah, just make a motion to receive it.
I make a motion to receive the application.
Second. And we go, aye. Okay, we took that one. So that's 2 weeks ahead. And if we might make some changes with our open, maybe it'll be something that we'll see that you just don't see. Yeah.
But I think, at the next meeting, we need to hear the specifics of what the plan is as far as crossing. We've got a lot of talking about, we might do corduroy, we might do bridges, we might go this way, we might go that way. I think, we need to hear the plan. This is what the plan is.
Right, my whole point for coming here obviously is to answer questions and concerns regarding the project. When I initially write out, a timber harvest map and a plan, I do it to the best of my ability, but also to leave our options open. So that's saying, let's, God forbid, one of the wetland crossings isn't turning out. We quit on that one, or we do anything further and try the other one. That's why I try to leave it open-ended, because it really depends when you're on site. You can't really gauge exactly what you're gonna do. If you're gonna do it, not in this case, but let's say 6 months later, things can change in 6 months depending on what you're doing. So that's why I try to leave it open-ended, but I also want your guys' feedback as to, oh, we don't wanna use let's use only temporary bridge mats. That's why I leave it open-ended, is for those purposes precisely.
It can be open-ended and bounded at the same time.
Well, sure.
We don't wanna, have an application and, okay, an application and then have Joe walk out there and there's completely something totally different going on.
Yeah, no, I don't want to see. No,
That happens more often than you think.
surprised. Sure, it would be. But I have also seen commissions in the past where, they'll give me, they'll accept the application under condition, et cetera, et cetera. Condition could be only temporary bridge mats and no corduroy or something along those lines. So it really depends, but that's another reason as to why If you're fine with corduroy and bridge mast, great. If you're only fine with one instead of the other, that's fine too. That's really up to your guys, you know, that's the whole point of this meeting, is to go over that together. Exactly, exactly. Right. Exactly. Exactly, exactly. Well,
Okay,
okay. Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Saturday.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
For the next one. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we're on to our next permit
Yeah.
application. Eric Anderson.
Do you need anything on here?
But,
Do you need anything on here?
no, I mean, I'm assuming at this meeting, you're simply accepting the application that the town submitted and it will be discussed at a follow-on meeting, or do you intend to discuss it? Discuss it now,
You can do both.
okay?
Would be good to present the.
Can you bring up the application?
I can.
So basically what the town is doing is the town is obviously building a new community center directly behind this building. At the same time, we're doing HVAC updates to both the fire department and town hall. One of the things we're doing with the town hall is changing from oil to propane for a heating source. We're doing this for two reasons. Reason number one, we only have a 275 gallon tank for this building. When it gets really cold out, we struggle to go 7 days between fill-ups, which is a problem. And if you happen to have a bad storm along with a cold snap, we stand a significant chance of having an issue. So what we've done, is made a decision that we're gonna go to propane. To do that, we're looking at installing 2 additional 1,000 gallon tanks behind the firehouse and directly adjacent to the 2 existing 1,000 gallon tanks. So we'd have a total of 4, basically gonna double the existing pad size. So if you're looking around and you're looking out back there and you see what's there, we're basically going to double that adjacent to that. Now, that does have wetlands impacts. The whole thing's in the upland review area. It's within 100 feet of the wetlands. But it also involves some filling in wetlands because the riprap has to extend past where we did have the wetlands flagged on this, and we had a surveyor come in and, take elevations and take points for that. Specifically for this project. So he calculated it was about 214 feet or 214 square feet of wetlands will be, impacted. The wetlands that are impacted are basically created in large part by the drainage. This is one of the main drainage swales, and outfalls from the town areas. So right now, unfortunately, that particular swale takes a fair bit of runoff from the parking area, so it's far from a pristine wetlands anyway. We are, as part of the community center application, going to be creating a separate rain garden to pre-treat some of the water coming off the parking lot. We obviously have way too much surface area to be able to create a rain garden big enough to deal with all of it, but we'll at least treat some of it before it gets to this wetlands. So the project will definitely have some wetlands impact, but they are fairly minimal. And then the second real question is there a feasible and prudent alternative place we can put the tanks, that has zero wetlands implication. And, we have surveyed this property and looked at it with that in mind. But part of what we're trying to do is interconnect all four of the tanks. And basically have an emergency interconnect so that, during a storm and during an extended outage, we can use the full capacity of all those tanks for the fire department, the generator, and the town hall. So the only way we can do that is if the tanks are co-located with each other. So that's basically what we're proposing. We're happy to talk about any mitigation that the commission thinks is appropriate. Because of the way the previous pad was built, which was basically to bring in fairly large ballast rock and build it up straight out of ballast rock, and then cap it with a concrete pad. There's not a lot of fines released, when doing that. So, we'd certainly be happy to use, some fencing or bales to act as a sediment barrier, but I'm not sure that it's really necessary, in this case. But we're certainly willing to consider it if the commission has anything that they think is appropriate for this spot in this application. So that's basically what we're talking about here.
Where the pad would be, is there running water there, or is it just delineated by soil, or is it just standing water?
So there is, you see that, if you poke your head out here and you listen by the culvert right there, you hear water running 24/7, 365 days a year. Because there's a full length curtain drain that runs all the way from the upper parking lot at the elementary school all the way back down to here, and it ends somewhere in this parking lot right there. So there is a constant drainage of water, from there. So yes, there is running water near there.
Okay. Is there any on the surface, or is it all?
No, it is all, pretty much 100% of what you see there comes out of the town's existing drainage system.
Okay. Is the pad gonna be pretty much right where that water is, or?
There's some other pictures too.
Yeah, we should be able to scroll through. If you looked at it from the top, it's,
Just to kind of understand where.
yep, nope.
Right there.
So that's like
Okay.
standing on the corner of the pad.
So here you're on the corner of the pad, looking towards essentially the town hall and the elementary school. And the tanks will go in a straight line from the existing pads. And you can see how the pad was burned up and built up. And essentially what we're doing is we're extending that built up area about 20 feet forward,
Okay.
to it. And you can see the wetlands flagging, the blue flagging for the wetlands area. We did have Richard Starsky come in and flag the wetlands, so we knew exactly what we were dealing with, in this site. And that is on the mapping.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was gonna be like in a stream or anything like that, it's just delineated, it's just on the edge there of the wetland.
Yeah. There's like the brook kind of splits, like where it comes out of the pipe, it's like an arm comes up a little closer to the tank, and then another one that goes away from it, and that one would be
Yeah,
out of the way, the other one
right.
get relocated.
But I mean, the truth, that whole drainage swale was kind of created. It wasn't
all
artificial,
man-made.
it's all man-made, it does serve as, there's a fairly significant buffered area before it goes into the main wetlands, which is the Dorothy Chamberlain, pond area back there. So there is a fairly good ability for that to, because there's no question that what's coming off both parking lots, has a fairly high level of contamination. And obviously that is a concern that is, ending up in a wetlands, but we're not adding to that. So.
If you considered any other locations, like if you were to put the new 2 tanks just inboard on the firehouse side of where these existing tanks are, so they're beyond the paved portion up there?
Yeah, you mean on the actual pavement? I don't think you would have enough of a turning radius to get the fire trucks in there. That's the reason the fire department is set up for, you know, a pull through there, and I think by doing that. You're eliminating a lot of that's why there's no parking allowed back there. Strictly so they have the swing radius for the vehicles.
I don't mind the idea of extending the pad, as long as not, you know, like you said, there's no waterway. It's like in the middle of, it's not cutting anything off. You extended it. I mean, you're right on the edge.
Is that, is there any other water down there? Is there a spring back there too? Or is it just wash that's coming off?
From at that particular location, it looks like the only thing coming through there is what's coming out of our existing drainage system. Not that, I mean, farther down, that the whole Doris Chamberlain Pond area is definitely wetlands, and it's definitely fed by a number of areas. You know, and there is, I'm sure there, you know, there is surface water that gets to that from a number of spots. But in terms of that little area directly beyond there, if you look at it, you can clearly see that the water coming into that is the water that's coming out of the main pipe, the main concrete pipe there. But, I mean, it's still wetlands, I mean,
Right, I know.
you know, I mean, and then, right,
Feels foolish to say, well, maybe you could go in there and cut out some of the invasives or something like that. Put 2 hours work of one of your guys and go in there and just pull out the very, any, what's the other one?
yeah. Well, I mean, we do from time to time, like, I mean, Public Works very definitely maintains some of the waterways because we have to. Because eventually they silt in and then they no longer function as designed. You have to be careful about when you do it, but,
I don't know, I live in Ann Arbor, and, when I moved into my house, I had so much of that going on. It took me 5 years to get rid of all of it. It's that, could be like a start to get it cleaned up a little bit on this end. You know, that's about the only mitigation I can think of. There's nothing, what else could you think of? There's really nothing.
We'll go think about it for the next meeting. We're not gonna vote on it tonight.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
other questions or concerns regarding this? It's obviously right out there, so if you ever want to do a sidewalk, you're more than welcome. It's all on town property. If we were here a couple hours ago, you could look out the back door and see exactly where it's going.
I was really surprised how tiny the gas pipes are coming off those tanks.
Yep.
They can handle the load, go to all these different things you wanna do there. Those are, don't have any lines.
No, you gotta.
Yeah.
Oh, basically, the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, in that case, I thank you all for your, I would appreciate it if you to receive the application. And I'm assuming then that you, at your next meeting, you would, issue a ruling at the next meeting. That's the basic plan.
Hope so, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
all right, I will make sure to be at that meeting.
I make a motion to accept the town's proposal for extending the pad to the propane tanks as received.
I'll second it.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you for your time and efforts. Thank you. For all those of you who are running, good luck.
That's it for us, and I guess.
Okay, can I just add
Joe's got some things here. Go in the back.
Yeah, it's the agent approvals, a bunch of septic systems, 64 Long Hill septic tank and leaching system. I'm not sure if that one's been started yet or not. Then there was another one, 226 Route 6. That one's done already. 2315, that's 10 Webster Lane, that's that new house that you guys approved a few years ago. He put a shed there on the other side of the long linear wetland. It was over there, it's in the upland review area. That's all like on the other side of the house. And then 31 Lakeside, it was supposed to start that pretty soon. They put the cell fence up and everything last time I checked. I think that was last week. So they're just replacing the leaching system. I think they're like putting it in between the existing system. And there's, forget, 30 feet, I think, from the lake. And then some other things, I looked at 409 Lake Road. They had a CO request for that, so I went and looked at the site, and the wetlands crossing looked good. It's stabilized, there's grass growing there. The rain garden was functioning. He said it functioned as soon as they dug it, it started filling up. So they got that area all seeded and everything. Nothing was growing over there yet, because they had done that later. That was last week or the week before, I think. I put the photos up on website under that 409 Lake Road one, if you want to take a look at it. And then 760 East Street, that was the one where the guy was redoing his stream because of the sill. So I went down there, he finished the grading, and I went out there to look at it to give him the blessing so he could seed it, but it looked pretty good. He did a good job making it nice and U-shaped instead of like a canyon like it was, and then connected it where we discussed. So he was gonna seed it, and then hopefully something grows, and then I'll come back out there and see if it's stable enough to start letting at least some of the water out. We talked about maybe doing partial dam rule in the winter, just to see how everything works, leaving the other one functioning. But it kind of all depends on if it's stable enough by the time the growing season ends, which, I mean, getting kind of late, but. So yeah, so that's what I got.
I was curious about the tree farm pond. And I know, you know, he had reached an agreement with you not to take out some of the big things. As I drive by there, you know, it doesn't look like anything's been done.
Yeah, they pulled out a lot of brush. I remember going to look at it and they had it all piled up there. I mean, I could go take another look over there and see.
Yeah, it
if
just
there's
looked like a
anything
bunch
else.
of, you know, the smaller brush down in the bottom there, but,
Yeah,
if you could do that, that'd be great. And, I know we've got a application in your folder for Grimaldi. And I looked at the pictures there,
mhm.
I was just curious, you know, did he do any filling in the wetlands as part of that? It looked like, you know, it was built up in the back of the
It is, it's about
garage shed there,
20 feet or so from the brook that's over on that side. It was really wet when I took a look, and then they had a foundation drain, so I was a little worried that, because there was some water coming out of that, under the fill.
Are you talking about that pad, we talking about the same thing from the other meeting?
Yeah.
So I thought.
Yeah, but it's not, there's a good
good
buffer.
from the wetlands
Yeah,
perspective. Okay.
yeah, that's what I was gonna approve it, but we had a problem with the payment and everything for that, so we can kind of wait to see. The communication is great with that application right now.
Okay, yep, I just,
I wonder why.
But we're trying, because they wrote a check for everything, and I couldn't pull the wetland one out yet to do that. And
Okay.
get it off the table, so it's just been sitting there.
Got it.
And then if they take the shed down, it's gonna bring up, that'll probably bring up more wetlands issues than just leaving it there. So it might, I don't know, it could change things. I was kind of hoping it would stay, but wetland wise, you know, because it's gonna be kind of disruptive to tear it down and disturb all the soil again. So that's a different matter. It's independent. of,
He's okay with wetlands, with what he did.
Yeah, it's got a good buffer. It's all wooded there, yeah, 15, 20 feet to that stream that's on that side. And then there's conservation easement on the opposite side of the yard, so it's kind of like looking at where we put it. There's really not a lot of alternatives, what works better on this, you know, looking at it from wetland standpoint.
I didn't have any question.
Any other questions? Okay. That's it for that, approval of the annual report. Want to push that to our next meeting?
I was gonna say, didn't we, aren't we done with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think all you have to do is approve it.
Yeah,
Just make a motion to close.
yeah. I'll make a motion to approve it. I mean, I looked at it like
Yeah,
for 3 months in a row.
yeah, we did all the corrections.
It's fine.
I'll second it. Can I second?
Gotta make a motion. I make a motion to approve the annual report as accepted.
And I,
Aye. Do we second?
Second, you want a second?
Second, I'll second. Fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
okay. So, next regular meeting, Monday, December 4th. Just a reminder, Saturday.
November 17th.
17th, I don't.
What was the, I don't, what did he mean by a public meeting? Is just a public meeting?
It's a special meeting,
But I
because
mean, does it have to be, do you have to notify?
it's
Yeah.
not a,
Oh,
the Saturday.
okay, so. So the public. So, yeah.
It's not like a public hearing, it's just it's a special meeting. We need to post an agenda, we need to take minutes.
Oh, okay, but that's it.
And then there's rules, like you can only. Can't ask questions about the application when you're there, you can just, like, this is where this crossing is, this is what, it's like looking at a map. It's like you look at that, this is where this goes, this is where that is.
But you have to notify the public. that-
Yeah, so in case they wanna, like, if
Be
they
there.
wanted to be there,
Okay.
you could actually come.
Okay,
So you can't ask questions? What do you mean by that?
Well, you can't like discuss the, you know, alternatives and then you have to save that for the next meeting.
Oh.
You can look at, it's like a location, anything related to the
well, are you
location.
talking about us, or are you talking
Yeah.
about the public?
No, the commission.
We're just going to look, we can't.
Just an orientation
Oh, okay,
to take a look at,
that,
look at this, and he can show us all these different things, and we can ask questions about it. But as far as, so why can't we use?
do this, or we can't do that.
We can say, where is that trail? Show us where that trail is. So that we can,
Right, that would be a good first thing to do, is find out why they can't use that trail. He says he can't come through here.
and it should have been on there.
Good answer.
I think you'd say that area wasn't harvested previously.
Previously,
And it
that,
was just wet, they didn't want to disturb the
Right.
soil because it's just very, it wasn't wetland, I guess, delineated.
Well, how do you know?
That's what he assumed they did,
oh, right,
the soil,
Yeah.
but they just didn't harvest in there, so that's why he didn't go through there.
Say again?
He just, I guess they didn't use that prior, they didn't harvest in that lower area, that lower right area. So that's why he wasn't.
so keen on using this.
Yeah, I guess it's just wet.
Right.
Yeah, bunker hill, that.
Right.
Yeah, I messed up, got my feet mixed up.
So do I hear a motion to end the meeting?
They both be adjourned.
I second.
I'll take it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay, can I ask a question? The gentleman that was sitting over here. I didn't know who was that.
Oh, Hank?